Imagine this. The best pasta sauce you have ever tasted sits abandoned on a plate. Wasted sauce. That is a tragedy. If only you had used Barilla al Bronzo pasta. Its bronze-cut texture holds your sauce and scoops up every last drop. The Italians call that scarpetta. Capture sauce the Italian way. Barilla al Bronzo. Click or tap the banner to find out more.
This episode of Manage Smarter is presented by Sales Fuel Coach, our adaptive sales coaching featuring 5-minute quick coaching personalized to each sales rep. Learn more about Sales Fuel Coach at salesfuel.com. Welcome to the Manage Smarter podcast with hosts C. Lee Smith and Audrey Strong. We're glad you're here for discussions on new ways to manage smarter, hire, develop and retain talent, improve results, and propel team performance to new heights. This is the Manage Smarter podcast.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for listening to Manage Smarter. I'm Audrey Strong. I'm Director of Communications at Sales Fuel.
And I'm C. Lee Smith, the President and CEO of Sales Fuel.
And today's guest just had a run of, well, is this right, Mark? 5 speeches in 5 days in 5 cities.
That is correct.
That's insane. And so I want to thank you. We are extremely lucky to have a small portion of this guest time. It's Mark Eaton. He's a successful award-winning motivational speaker, entrepreneur, NBA All-Star for the Utah Jazz for 12 seasons, a restaurateur, and author of the best-selling book, The 4 Commitments of a Winning Team. And he's also a CSP, that's a certified speaking professional. And you have been traveling like a maniac, giving speeches all over the place, right, Mark?
I have. I've crisscrossed the country a few times in the last few weeks.
So, let's go ahead.
To have you.
Let's go ahead and dissect that the title of the book, and start with the word team. I think anybody just thinks that you can throw like a collection of any people or things together or whatever, and all of a sudden, presto, you have a team just because you have a collection of people or things. What is your definition of team?
Well, I agree with you. I think it's an overused term in the business world today, and I think a lot of people say we're a team without really understanding what it is. And from my perspective, a team is more than a collection of group or a group of individuals. It's really about the commitment that you have to the people around you. That it's not about following a goal or hitting a number. It's really about the commitment to making sure that each member of your team feels included and has it becomes an integral part of that sales team or of that unit, and feels like they're valued as well.
So groups and teams are definitely different.
Yeah, they definitely are. And in the world of basketball, you can't survive without your teammates. They have to be there they have to be there for you. You have to be there for them. And then everyone needs to feel like they're an integral part, because otherwise you've just got one guy trying to make all the shots and do all the things, and everybody else just kind of starts standing around. And that ultimately results in a losing season.
And when I'm going to use a basketball analogy too. It seems fitting because I remember Michael Jordan when he first came into the league or whatever. He was having 50-point games on a regular basis and everything like that, and the Bulls still lost. And it wasn't until he started. Then he had Scottie Pippen, and then he had Horace Grant, and he started using his cast a little bit more and making the rest of his teammates better. And actually, they became more of a team. Then they started to win.
Right, and that was the beauty of Phil Jackson being able to sit down with Michael Jordan and then later on Kobe Bryant and explaining to them, like, we don't need you to score 50 points. I need you to score 30 points. I need you to get 6 or 8 assists every night, helping your teammates score.
Yeah.
So good coaching.
The 4 commitments, I'm going to have you rattle them off, but they seem like very simple concepts that everybody should be able to execute every day. But that is not the case. You're laughing already. I can see, guys, he's laughing. We only do audio, but Mark's smiling. So what are they, and why are they so hard on a day-to-day?
Well, I think they're simple principles, and sometimes people just forget how fundamental they are. The 4 commitments are knowing your job, doing that one thing you're excellent at, doing what you've been asked to do, which really is about execution, making other people look good, and protecting your teammates. And they're very simple, but it starts with you, with understanding what your strengths are, what you bring to the party. It's not about working on your weaknesses. It's about leveraging your strengths and doing more of them. And the execution is about doing what you've been asked to do. It's like, do you really know what other people want from you, your boss, your customers? Are you willing to ask and then really commit to doing precisely what they've asked you to do? And then making the people around you look good, focusing on the well-being of those that are close to you, that help you do your job, and your customers, making them look good, because ultimately that's what everybody wants, is to be taken to that next level. And then finally, just protecting each other, really being there for them, honestly caring about people as opposed to just looking at them as a number or a sale.
Right. Is there any one of the four that is more commonly overlooked and not executed, or are we all equal offenders on all of the
Oh,
four?
I think there's a lot to go around, but one thing I find is a lot of people don't know what their job is and they're afraid to ask. They come to work and they just start doing things and hoping that the boss notices them without really ever taking the time to step back and say, number one, what am I good at? And secondly, is this something my boss appreciates, or should I maybe take a little time to sit down and find out what they really want and try to marry that up with what my strengths are. And then I think also, especially in sales, that sometimes you get into that internal competition where I've got to knock out my teammate in order for me to get ahead.
So silly.
And I think that's just it doesn't work well in the world of sales. I think that you're there because you guys have a great product. You've got people that have supported you. You've got back-end people that make the sales cycle work. And all those people are as or more important as you are out selling.
It's for the team to actually achieve its identity and play to its identity. Each individual player has to play to their own identity. And in sales, I believe that's sort of like, you're a closer, or we brought you here because you're great at discovery. We brought you here because you're a great negotiator, or you're great at overcoming objections, or doing all the prep work and doing all the research beforehand, or picking the right people to go after. Do that, play to your identity. And then if we all do that, then hopefully we've assembled the team the right way that the team can have success. Does that sound like a good application to sales?
It is, because I look at it as it's really honoring your role. So that's the reason you were brought in. That's what you're really good at. Let's focus on that and allow the other people to focus on their strengths. And if you do that, then you've got a winning team. And it's so easy to jump into someone else's business or start trying to tell other people what to do, how they should be doing their job, when the real key is, how can you do your job better?
I like that story you told in San Francisco about you got clarity on your job when you were in the MBA about you're supposed to protect the basket and that's it. Can you tell that story again?
I love that story.
Yeah.
Sure. When I was at UCLA as a college player, I wasn't playing very much. I was sitting on the end of the bench and things weren't going very well. And during the summer between my junior and senior year, I was working out at the men's gym at UCLA, and a lot of great players would show up there every afternoon. There were some great pickup games there, practice games. And one day I'm running up down the court and I'm trying to chase this little guard named Rod Foster, whose nickname is Rocket. Fastest human being I've ever seen from one end of the court to the other. And I just can't catch the guy. And he's getting to the basket by the time I'm getting about going across half court. And I'm pretty frustrated. I'm standing on the sidelines for a minute and thinking to myself, I don't know if I can play at this level, because these guys are so much faster and quicker than I am. I'm 7'4", weigh 300 pounds, right? And I'm trying to catch these little guys that are weighing, they're 6 feet tall, weighing 180. And on the sidelines while I'm taking a break, I feel this big, large hand on my shoulder one day, and I turn around and it's Wilt Chamberlin. And he used to come down and work out with the guys. This is after he retired from the NBA. But every afternoon he would still show up at the men's gym. And he pulled me aside and he looked me in the eye and he said, first of all, you're never going to catch that guy. And secondly, it's not your job. And he said, why don't you come with me and let me show you what your job is? And he took me out in front of the basket. And he said, you see this basket behind you? He said, your job is to stand here and stop players from getting to the basket. Your job is to make them miss their shot, and then collect the rebound, and then throw it up to the guard, let them go down the other end and score it. And your job is to kind of cruise up to half court and see what's going on. And it was a real light bulb moment for me, because I finally understood what I could be good at on the basketball court. I was out there trying to do all these things, and he showed me the one thing I could focus on and be great at. And I took that little 5-minute conversation and turned it into a 12-year NBA career, because I just focused on one aspect of the game of basketball and got better and better and better at it.
So some of the things so we've applied your lessons into sales. You're in the restaurant business as well. So when it comes to putting together a great team in the restaurant business, what does that look like?
Well, it's not any different. You have to have a great chef who's also a great kitchen manager. You have to have great servers. You've got to have a great product, great food, day in and day out. You're only as good as your last meal. I've been in the business for 23 years, And consistency is what it's all about. And so each player on the team has to perform their role on a nightly basis. And it doesn't, you can have a great Saturday night. Well, you better have be just as consistent on Sunday night when the chef might not be there. You've got other players that need to step in and play bigger roles. So we talk about that a lot, about really focusing on what makes us great and being able to recreate that on a daily basis, because it's all about the consistency. So it's vitally important in that business as well.
What if you get a player on your team, though, who is brilliant at times, absolutely head and shoulders above everybody else, or wherever, and then the next day or whatever is in the toilet, and they're always on that roller coaster ride. Their highs are too high, their lows are too low, and they don't have that consistency. How do you deal with that? How do you coach
Well,
that?
again, that goes back to the coach, the owner, the manager, to sit down with those folks and help them understand what they need from them. It's like in the NBA. If you got a guy that scores 30 points one night and then for the next 5 or 6 games goes to sleep, that's not going to help the team win. So it's really looking at how to raise their game on a consistent level and coach them to help them understand that. It's like remember that book called Raving Fans? It was written by it's a guy from that wrote, the 1 Minute Manager.
Ken Blanchard.
Ken Blanchard, thank you. Had a brain lock there. Talks about the process of going from hiring employees to judging them without the coaching step in between. So when I hear stories like that, it tells me that someone has not done a good job explaining to that person what their role is, what their job is, and how vitally important their consistency is to the viability of the entire team, the entire organization.
Now, you're saying in terms of execution on the 4 commitments that you should commit yourself and choose 1 per week or 1 per month to focus on. Tell me kind of what that looks like for our audience.
In terms of the 4 commitments, or just about the 2?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, yeah. So now I'm saying, okay, I'm all in, Mark. I get it. I know what the 4 are. How am I going to execute on this 1 per month or 1 per week with myself and or my team?
Well, I think the first thing is that to either pick up my book and look at, from number 1, knowing your job, some of the possibilities in terms of character traits and skills you probably already possess that you could leverage more. Asking 3 people what you're really good at is another way to gain that information. Once you have that information, say, okay, how am I doing on a scale of 1 to 10 of leveraging this, and how could I leverage it more? And then moving on to the execution piece of saying, okay, well, this is what I'm doing well, and either talking to your boss or your customers and saying, okay, I'm doing this and this, and we're working on that. Is there anything else I should be doing? Is there anything else I should be more focused on? Your willingness to go and sit with that person, that customer, and ask them that question is the second step. The third step is to look around you and say, okay, am I making my customers look good? Where would I rate myself on a scale of 10? Am I making my teammates look good? Is there somebody I need to go have a cup of coffee with, or acknowledge, or check in with, and creating an action step for that? In my seminars, I challenge people to do that, to actually put down a date and a time of when am I going to go meet with Audrey and buy a cup of coffee for her, or check in with her, and see if there's something I can do for her. And the last point is protecting others is simply about getting away from the gossip, not throwing other people under the bus, but really understanding that we're all here for each other, and that my job is to support the people around me. And so just raising the vibration level a little bit there in terms of getting out of the water cooler talk and letting your customers know that you've got their back, I think is something that anybody can do on any given day. And again, these aren't complicated things, but if you refer back to them and make them sort of a baseline of where you work from, I think you'll see instant success.
What character traits do you believe that any great manager or coach possess? I'm looking at character traits in one of the chapters of your book there. You just mentioned them. Which ones are absolutely essential and absolutely necessary whenever you go and hire a manager to run a department of your company?
Well, I think the first one is integrity. I think that's got to be there above all else, and that's got to be a high number. And then from a skill standpoint, somebody who's a great coach or motivator from a management standpoint, especially in sales, I think is vitally important, because sales is an up and down game, right? And you have a big win, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, we got to start over again. That was last week. And so having somebody who can look back and help you gain more consistency day in and day out from a teaching and instructing standpoint, as well as being a motivator, I think is pretty important. Hopefully they can also set strategy, but a lot of organizations, the strategy is set. It's really about the execution and about staying on top of your game day in and day out that make the biggest difference.
You have clarity listed in the book, and I think that's absolutely essential for any manager to have clarity.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And one of the challenges in today's business environment is with mergers and acquisitions and stuff and divisions changing and realignments, it's sometimes challenging to understand, okay, where was the goal again? Where were we going and what we were doing? And so I think the manager's job is to glean that from the higher ups and be able to take it down to the masses and say, okay, this is how we win. I think that's what everybody really wants to know in work. When they go to work is, I understand the job, I understand the complexities of it. How do I win? What's the bottom line? And I think that's where you're going to see the greatest results as the more and more you gain clarity in terms of what the true objective is and how it directly relates to each individual employee. That's the juice.
Digging down into it. Let me play devil's advocate for a minute. Say you work for an organization, you're listening to the show, and it's like, I know what my job is, but now they want me to do professional development and learn something new that's not in my wheelhouse. So knowing my job is mutating, it's changing. How should somebody apply the commitments to that situation?
I think that you have to go back again and say, what is it that I'm really, really good at? Because again, it's trying to learn something different that's outside of your wheelhouse is going to be a challenge. Is that really going to benefit the bottom line of the company and your bottom line? And so being able to go in there from a place of strength and say, look, this is what I'm really, really good at. This is what I bring to the party. This is what I'm successful at. Is there a way I can do more of that, and still look at this professional development or whatever it is they want you to do? But at the same time, it's like, okay, this is how we make money. This is how we sell. How can we do more of that? And having an honest conversation with them, because sometimes stuff just comes down the pipe and people start implementing it without any real thought to how it impacts people individually. And so I think it's up to the employee at that point in time to step back and say, whoa, let's just wait a minute. And can we talk about this rather than just, blindly saying, okay, geez, I guess I got to do this now. Because it's easy for managers, especially as they cut labor costs, to say, well, here's 3 more jobs for you. And I think the onus is on the salesperson or the staff person to step up and say, wait a minute, let's chat about this.
So Mark, who was the best coach you ever had and what made him or her special?
In my book, I talk about my coach, Tom, that taught me how to play basketball when I was an auto mechanic and gave me an opportunity to try it again at age 21 after I did not have any success with it in high school. And the reason I tried it again was because of his commitment to me. He said, look, if you want to try this, I'll be here for you every morning, every evening. I don't want anything from you. I'm just willing to teach you what I know about the game of basketball and show you some things you probably don't know. And being 7'4", everybody assumes you should be a basketball player. Right?
They assume Audrey should be a basketball player.
I know. I'm only 6'1", so I'm a
right.
Pee-wee. Yeah.
Right. When my wife, when my coach was sharing that with me, and when I was an auto mechanic, people would come in the shop all the time and say, you should play basketball. You should play basketball. You should play basketball. And it was like, okay, as you well know, like, all right, enough. But this guy came from a different approach. He said, look, I know some things about the game you don't know, and I'm willing to share them with you and will be there with you every step of the way. And I think that was the most important factor to me, was that he was committing himself to me as a person as well as a potential ball player, and didn't want anything from me. And I think that made the biggest difference and has had the biggest impact on my life.
So the follow-up question has to be, so think about the worst coach you ever had, and don't name him or her, obviously, but it's like, what lesson did you learn from that person?
That not everybody understands what you can do. I had coaches in college that I did not play for, that I sat on the end of the bench, and they just didn't get it. And and I was very upset and mad about that at the time. And years later, I came to comprehend a little bit better that they just didn't understand what I brought to the party. And so that was my fault for not being better prepared or being willing to have a different conversation with them. And ultimately, it wasn't the long-term goal. As my junior college coach would tell me, you're not going to play in the games now. You got to make the practices your games. And, it's not the coach, it's not the team, it's you. You need to get better. And so I took that to heart as well, and doubled down on my time in the gym to try and be ready when an opportunity did come along later on, which it did.
I've been looking at your speaking schedule. Your dance card is very full, but we want to, for 2019, how's it looking, and how can people contact you to book you for a speech or, get on your roster?
My website is 7foot4.com, and that's the easiest way to find me. We're on Twitter, Instagram, any of the other social media platforms. I'm on all of those. And 2019 has already got a pretty good slate of speeches.
Great.
So things are going well, and we're selling lots of books. So everything's good.
If you need a ringer for your if you need a ringer for your basketball team, then too, also reach out to Mark. So
yeah, and everybody, all major booksellers have the book. I saw that on your website, also Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all of them.
Yes,
it's everywhere.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
Wow, Mark. Well, thank you so much. It was such an honor and pleasure to meet you in San Francisco earlier this year, and I'm really glad that you gave us some of your time. What a treat! Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and recommend on iTunes, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more great information at salesfuel.com.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.